Bitcoin continues to see volatility with pumps and dumps in the market liquidating retail investors left and right. In today's video, we're going to be jumping down into the technical analysis on the 1 hour, 1 day and 1 week's timeframes, sharing my thoughts and opinions on what is going on here when it comes to the price action of Bitcoin. As I get into the video, you know what to do. Let's waste no more time, roll the intro and get right down into it. Okay guys, so here we are. We have Bitcoin paired up with USDT. We are on the Binance 1 hour time frame chart here, and as you can kind of see, we've got some interesting kind of volatility, right? We saw the moves to the downside, so we're just going to recap those, right? We had our low down here at 40,222. We can then also see that we pushed up towards 43,475, and then we pulled down. We saw a bit of a crash yesterday right down into this low at 41,400, and then we rallied back up again. But obviously we failed to reach higher than the 43,475 area, where we can see that we have got this upper area of resistance. As you can kind of see here, if we were to draw in a couple of trend lines, if we draw a trend line in down on the low side here, you can see that our expectation needs to be pretty clear that if we come back down and lose this trend line, that we need to be thinking about price going down a little bit deeper. Okay, so as you can kind of see at the moment, right where price is right now, it's resting on equilibrium. Equilibrium is essentially a 50% level between a premium or a discounted range according to smart money concepts. So up here you can see that it's a premium range, and down here you can see that there is a discount range. Equilibrium sits halfway between the two. And so with equilibrium normally acting as support or resistance for price, we find Bitcoin at a critical moment. We can also see that we have the red line, that is the 50 EMA, the yellow line, that is the 50 SMA, and the white line as the 200 EMA, also right here with equilibrium. Chances are we're going to find support here. If we lose these areas of support, then we are going to be looking at that trend line to see if we can find support there. Failing to find support here at approximately $42,000 means that we are likely to see a retest of the lows that we saw yesterday at 41,400, and potentially even lower. If we do lose that support level there, then we are of course just talking about testing some of these existing levels. But ultimately, if we lose the trend line, the expectation here will be that the trend line itself becomes resistance and we move on down. Now, I talk about this quite often on the channel, but higher highs and higher lows, although has short-term bullish scenarios, is usually a bearish tell. It tells us that with overlapping candlestick structures, specifically like these here, that there isn't really a trend to the upside. It's not a strong movement to the upside, and higher highs, higher lows have a tendency to want to break on down. Okay, so we do find ourselves with support at the moment on the 50 EMA, the 50 SMA, the 200 EMA, equilibrium. All those things are pretty positive. Smart money concepts, though, is still in a bearish structure. It hasn't changed. We are not in a bullish structure on the 1 hour time frame here for Bitcoin. So we want to bear that in mind. Ultimately, we haven't confirmed our bearish state of play with a break of structure either. So we are in this kind of state of play where we have to wait for confirmation of these movements to kind of materialize. Our stochastic RSI is down here in this oversold area, right? So we have got the momentum to find support here and rally on up, maybe pushing higher than 43,475. Okay, so that's a positive thing to kind of note. Now, I'll take the stochastics off and we throw the divergence indicator on here. You can see that we did see a bearish divergence right here before we saw this flash crash. So anyone who is monitoring the divergence indicator, you're able to kind of get a good bead on what is likely to happen. Okay, so we can see here that we had the strong high. Okay, we had the wicks basically coming up into this higher range, and we could have shorted the market right here. Okay, with that bearish indicator, basically put in our stop loss right there, and we could have been targeting out that 50 EMA or 50 SMA down there as our take profit. That would have been a 5.61 risk reward ratio. Would have been a fantastic trade if you were able to catch that one. Let me know in the comments if you were able to trade that crash to the downside. And of course, if I were to be trading it, which I wasn't, but if I was, I would be trading on BitGet, because that is my go-to trading platform for leverage-based trades at the moment. If I was to short Bitcoin, I would be shorting it on BitGet. Link is in the description. If you haven't yet signed up, check it out. So ultimately, we can find ourselves here with good support. We haven't got any divergences. I would have liked to have seen some kind of bullish divergence here to kind of confirm that we're finding good levels of support and we can start thinking about a rally to the upside. We'd also be able to potentially trade this one with putting the stop loss below that 200 EMA and targeting out the 43,475 area. Good risk reward ratio is there as well, but I would have preferred to have seen a divergence flag up there as well on the indicator. Volume profiles are of course down, except for that volume in basically dragging us down into those lows at the moment. Volumes are very, very poor. We can see here that ultimately volumes, even though we've rallied back up a little bit here, have been decreasing quite dramatically. Even during this move to the upside, you can see the volumes are very, very low. They were not very supportive of a move to the upside. So we want to be aware that although we can see some positivity in terms of price action, or at least there's a little bit more green in the market, the volume profiles are quite scary low, and they're not going to be giving us kind of a huge, amount of hope for a bullish market right at this moment. In fact, I would say that there isn't really a lot of demand for buying Bitcoin at these prices, and we want to kind of be very cautious about what that might mean for the price action of Bitcoin as we kind of go further through December into January. Let's go ahead and take this up into our daily time frame. So in our daily time frame, we had that upper area of resistance between 42,976 and 45,456. This was the upper area of resistance on the move to the upside, where we did see price topping out at $44,700. We then started to see this move to the downside, and we had a nice healthy correction back to the upside. Our target range for this was 42,400 to 44,146. At the moment, the price action is right there in the middle of that, and I am going to be looking for a correction to the downside from here, but I don't think we're done just yet. I expect us to be testing those slightly higher ranges before we are done and before we can start to really talk about the next moves to the downside. So I still see us with some potential moves to kind of push up a little bit further here, but I don't think we're going to push up too much. I'd be very surprised if we were to rally up higher than 44,700. It is a possibility though, but I would be very surprised if that were the case. As you can see, our next area of support or an area of interest for support comes in at $39,600 to 40,000 and just 40,000. I'll just call it 40,000 flat to be really simple. So basically $39,600 to $40,000. If we were to lose this area, we do have our 50 EMA and 50 SMA hovering around the $38,000 level. This is actually just above a fair value gap on the price chart, coming in at $35,735 to $37,650. This fair value gap is something that was created back on November 22nd, and this is an interesting zone because fair value gaps, they don't always get filled out, but they do have a high tendency to get filled out. And what I mean by that is the fair value gaps are created from pockets of illiquid markets, right? So in price action terms, there was no liquidity for Bitcoin, or very little liquidity for Bitcoin, between 35,735 and 37,650. This means that price has to go from the low side to the high side to find active buyers and sellers. And so what you tend to find is price action likes to put liquidity where liquidity was not, i.e. price goes back down and fills out the fair value gaps. And so what we've got to be really mindful of here is there's a lot of fair value gaps on the price chart. This is just the very first one that's being signaled here to us that we're likely to move on down. So I do at some point expect Bitcoin's price to be moving down to 35,735 to 37,650. If we do not hold this area, we can see the equilibrium sits at 34,300 to approximately 35,300. So we do have a support level of equilibrium to be found on the daily time frame as well. Our 200 EMA, currently sat at 31,769, is sat in another fair value gap between 30,248 and 32,832. So we do note that there's a couple of really good key areas of support to be found here for Bitcoin Bitcoin should a major correction start to unfold, which I do think is something that we should be expecting to see in the price action of Bitcoin. I've been through this many times already and many times before. Essentially, the data that I'm looking at is giving me a lot of fearish or bearish fears around what the price action is likely to do. Ultimately, we're not really seeing the ideas or the data to support the idea of a bullish market. Instead, we need to kind of anticipate corrections in the market that are well overdue, in my opinion. So we've had a really good 2023 so far, but ultimately I am looking for these corrections to start to unfold so that we can start to actually have some kind of consolidation, some form of capitulation where we see some retail investors come into selling pressure and we actually start to see larger investors coming into the space. At the moment, we don't see that from the on-chain analytics, as I've spoken about in the last few days on the videos and the walk and talks and stuff like that. So it's interesting. Our momentum indicator is indicating that we have some strength to the upside to be seen here, but it's no guarantee. Just bear that in mind. So our stochastic is just above the oversold area. Now, if I take the stochastics off and throw on our divergence indicator, we still have our bearish divergence that was indicated on this peak that we saw. Again, if we were to trade this one, we would have been trading this with a stop loss that would be quite healthy. I have entered into a short on this daily time frame on Bitcoin, and I am looking for a move down towards that $30,000. It's going to be something that's probably going to take quite some time to play out, but that is going to be my target range on my BTC short. And again, I am using BitGet for my shorting trades. So why not check that out if you haven't done so already? Link is in the description below. And so, yeah, so our divergence indicator is indicating that we have the bearish flag there, but we haven't got any bullish ones or any other bearish ones to be seen here. So we still are looking for moves to the downside. On this one, as far as I can see, we've retraced nicely right up into that expected range, but we are going to be looking for more corrections downwards, in my opinion. So I'll throw back on the volume profiles here, and you can see how the volumes are very, very low. Just going to give you some scale to this. This is the volume down this side at the beginning of the year, January, February, March. And then after this, volumes are just non-existent. Now, this isn't just Binance. This is pretty consistent across many of the other exchanges as well. The smaller the exchanges, the less extreme this looks. The larger the exchanges, the more extreme it looks. Okay, so take a look at Bitstamp, you can see it there. Take a look at Kraken, you can see it there. But when you start taking a look at smaller exchanges, it's not as extreme as you can see here when it comes to Binance. So we want to be aware that volume profiles are very, very low. And this could be quite disastrous for Bitcoin should a influx of Bitcoin comes to the market to be sold off without such a significant amount of demand to support the market price where it is. So be very mindful over the volume profiles are an indication that we are not necessarily in that bullish environment that people also claim they want to be in. So take this up into our weekly and we can see our parallel channel. Our parallel channel here has been testing the upper area, upper trend line. That has obviously been tested and rejected from. We obviously have the lower side as well. I'm going to call out some of the key areas of support that I am looking for here. Make this a little bit bigger so we can see. On the top side, we are talking 36,262 to 37,717. That's going to be the first area of support looking for on the weekly time frame. Once that is kind of done and maybe we found support, maybe we lose it. If we do lose it, the next area of interest is going to be 30,330 to 31,818. Hence my short targeting out that key area. If we actually take a look at this, we can see that this was a previous area of resistance that was broken through but has never been retested. So this is going to be my key area of interest. Not only does $30,000 also look like an area of previous resistance that could turn to support, it is also going to be a retest of our trend line should this happen over the next few weeks. We can see that our lower parallel channel trend line is coinciding with our $30,000 to $31,000 support level. So this is going to be quite an interesting zone for us. Now, you can also note that the 50 EMA, the 50 SMA, and the 200 EMA are starting to turn up here and could also coincide within our $30,000 level. So for the most part, I think $30,000 is going to be the key area for support that we need to see how price reacts to. Lose this, we are of course talking about the next key areas, which are 24,756 to 26,878. Lose that and you go down to 19,005 to 21,007. So for the most part, we can still see 20 to 21,000 on the horizon here, but we do need to see how price reacts to all of those key areas before we can start saying Bitcoin goes to 20K, in my humble opinion. Ultimately, I think we need to see how price reacts at 36.37. Then if it loses that, 30 to 31, loses that, 24 to 26, and then of course we go down to 21. So I think for the most part, our weekly chart is very interesting. Not only are we in this kind of parallel channel with the higher range being tested and the support areas to be retested, in my opinion, we're also heavily overbought on that weekly time frame, and we will be expecting larger corrections to the downside. Our divergence indicator shows that the RSI is heavily overbought on the weekly time frame as well. There are no additional bullish divergences, hidden or otherwise, flagged up here, nor are there any bearish indications just yet either, but this would be one to definitely keep an eye on. When we've seen these in the past, we saw the hidden bullish divergence that took us up this fantastic run of about 79%, so it's always important to keep a close eye on the weekly charts. The bearish one obviously saw us with a big move to the downside here, coming in at 21% as well, and I am expecting about a 40% move in Bitcoin's price action. Again, this will be testament to not just the weekly time frame, but also the monthly time frame. Shooting back here to the monthly, we can see that we're heavily overbought on the monthly time frame. Last time that we were overbought on the monthly time frame like this, we were of course at the $65,000 before we had that all-time high, and obviously we know that that flagged up divergences as well right here with the hidden bearish divergence. Ultimately, there's no additional bearish divergences being seen, but as you can kind of see, this is going to be a big interesting move for Bitcoin's price action, in my opinion, as to what happens next. Every time that we've been this overbought on the stochastic RSI, we have seen very healthy corrections to the downside, and so this is going to be one that we're going to keep a very close eye on. If I zoom out of this just a little bit, you can see if we connect all of the peaks and all of the troughs, we have this kind of curved parallel channel, if you will, and basically this, if we were to test this low, we are going to be looking at a new bear market low point. So a big black swan event may be there, I don't know, but for the most part, very interesting price action here on BTC. We are looking for a second capitulation, and maybe this curved line is just not quite where it needs to be. Maybe it needs to kind of change up a little bit. But for the most part, we are looking for a major correction. We are looking for about 40%, as I do think that is going to be the most realistic price action for Bitcoin over the next few months. Now, I'm going to leave the video there. If you have found it useful, informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. And if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, what are you waiting for? Check it out. Link is in the description down below. Until the next one though, guys, have a fantastic day.